Who's right? Am I right? Is she right? Are we both right?
How about we split the difference, all right? Here's what I think. Dude, I think that you're right and that it should be a private thing because the last thing you want to do is walk around with your cheeks all gaunt saying, it's because I'm fasting.
You can do a lot of soul searching in the mountains, and I had spent just a lot of time with what I felt with things. I came away from that pretty much 100%. I'm done with religion. But my parents had gotten even deeper involved, like more and more and more and more so. So I was like, I'm going to have a talk with them when I get back. I'm an adult now. I'm 22. We can do this. This is going to be great. And I told her, I don't think I'm really a Baptist anymore. She went hysterical, started screaming, and I don't even remember what she was saying, but like her face turned like 3 different colors and she jumped in the car and drove away. So I was like, well, I am not going to be able to talk to her about the dreaded A word ever.
This is the Everyone's Agnostic Podcast with Cass Midgley and Marie Delafont.
We interview people you don't know about a subject no one wants to talk about. We hope to encourage people in the process of deconstructing their faith and help curb the loneliness that accompanies it. We think the world is a better place when more people live by sight, not by faith. Please subscribe to our podcast and leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. Also, you can support us monetarily in 2 easy ways. You can pledge
$1 million
or more through Patreon. That's patreon.com/EA podcast. Or leave a lump sum donation through PayPal at our website, everyone'sagnostic.com. The smallest contribution is greatly appreciated.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 237 of the Everyone's Agnostic Podcast. I'm Cass Midgley. Keep in mind, someday, each of us are going to fall asleep and never wake up. This podcast is free to all and free of ads. So a big thanks to each and every one of our Patreon and PayPal supporters. Today, Marie Delafont and I chat with Jenn from the Waiting4Wrath podcast. Jenn was raised strictly Southern Baptist in South Georgia and has all the requisite baggage that comes along with that. Leaving home for university and discovering a love of world travel helped her to begin the process of leaving religion in her early 20s. By 25, it was pretty much decided. She didn't start using the scary atheist word, however, until joining the podcast Waiting4Wrath in 2014. I was a guest on that podcast on episode 213. Before we get into our talk with Jenn and Marie's monologue and announcements, some of you may know that I went back to college to get a master's degree in theological studies in 2011, after losing my faith. I wanted the credentials to critique Christianity in writing and eventually in this podcast. During that 2-year program, I encountered some of the smartest and kindest people I'd ever met, one of whom was Peter Capraro, a young 30-something finishing his Ph.D. in religion, psychology, and culture. His writings are informed by his clinical work as a hospice chaplain, crisis counselor, and pastoral psychotherapist. Currently, he's an adjunct instructor in pastoral care at Lexington Theological Seminary. We're friends on Facebook, and he recently posted the following comments. I feature them here to highlight a distinct difference in harmful Christianity and harmless Christianity. I know it's controversial to acknowledge healthy versions of religion, but you've caught me on a day when my acceptance that we're probably not going to ever eliminate religion and humanity has gotten the best of me. But the distinction I want to make, if I might think binarily for a moment, is a Christianity that is humble and one that wants power. One wants to serve, the other wants to lead. One wants to contribute from underneath, and the other wants to take away by taking over. Trump is the new leader of the latter. He is the least Christ-like person, and thus it is clear that Christians are only using him to gain power. And Trump's self-awareness is so absent and his ego so prevalent that he's more than willing to be heaved up upon their shoulders in glory and glow of their tyranny-loving fetish. To me, the suspension of Jesus in the hearts and minds of the Christians I respect is an exercise in futility. But to them, it seems to be much more. And I respect them and have no desire to rob them of that expression. After all, my point in this post is anti-authoritarian. Capraro addresses the incompatibility of being a Christian and supporting Trump. He writes, quote, "You cannot be a Christian and support Trump, and this has been crystal clear for a very long time now. If you claim to be a Christian and still support Trump and those enabling him in the GOP, then you have fundamentally misunderstood the gospel and what it means to follow Jesus. Repent, or may God have mercy on your soul for weaponizing the faith against itself." With Jerry Falwell Jr. now claiming that there is nothing Trump could do to lose support of him and other evangelical leaders, with Franklin Graham aligning himself with neo-Nazis and Trump on the highest expressions of white supremacy, and with Liberty University implicated directly in rigging polling data for Trump. It is clearer today than ever that American evangelicalism aligns itself with Trump precisely because of their shared authoritarianism. Let me repeat that. American evangelicalism aligns itself with Trump precisely because of their shared authoritarianism. This makes the unrepentant allegiance of so many self-proclaimed Christian friends and family members to Trump all the more horrifying. In this horror, it helps to recall the Christian philosopher Soren Kierkegaard's distinction between the unreflective and culturally habitual empire of Christendom, and what it means to strive to become a Christian. Those who ascribe to the selfish inauthenticity of Christendom will always outnumber those who actually aspire to faith. Under such circumstances in Christendom, Kierkegaard prophesied, it becomes more and more difficult to find a point of departure if one wishes to know what Christianity is. Unquote. Put simply, American Christians' unbridled allegiance to Trump and the GOP is the most unquestionable example of Christendom I have seen in my lifetime. I pray I do not live long enough to witness a better paragon. It's an assault on Jesus' teachings. Evangelical Trump supporters have not invited Jesus into their hearts. They've embraced Christendom. End of Peter's comments. I post Peter's thoughts to demonstrate one school of thought, that Trumpian evangelicalism is not Christianity. Well, it's certainly not Peter's Christianity, and I love him, and I love that about him. But the problem arises with the assumption that Peter's Christianity is the right one, and Franklin Graham's is the wrong one. I've said for years that no two Christians believe the same, thus there is as many Christianities as there are Christians, which leaves me right back where I found myself 10 years ago. That there's no point in holding to any Christianity. Just join the human race, and in so doing fulfill much of Christianity without saying so, which in itself sounds like the parable that Jesus told of the two sons. One said no and did the Father's will, the other said yes and did not. Joining the human race is inherently an antithetical stance against Trumpism, which includes racism, xenophobia, othering, sex phobias, gender phobias, and general insecurity over what it means to be human. Saying yes to what is essentially guards one's heart and mind against the fears and insecurities that make us like Trump, that make us unlike Peter's Jesus, and equips us to be our best selves in the face of the realities in which we find ourselves. We taped this conversation on February 10th, 2019. The opening music on this episode is a song called Never Stop by Chill Hop. The intro music is by Dave Weckl called Just Groove Me. Thank you for listening, and be a yes-sayer to what is.
I had a really hard time deciding what to discuss for my monologue. Do I talk about how I am seriously exploring how to leave my job and pursue my many passions full-time? Do I talk about what it's like being the personal assistant to Dave Warnock, a dying man on a mission to share his experiences and how it feels for me, being a person terrified of death and dying, to support and witness his? Or do I talk about how much I've learned this week regarding the damaging effects of being taught as a culture that sex is performative? You can see why I'm torn. But ultimately, I decided to talk about how I am racist. I've realized for several years now that I am. And at this point, I'm going to give you a content warning. I'm going to discuss my experiences with fighting my own undesired, internalized white supremacy. I acknowledge not all listeners will want to hear about this process. Now, it was right after the Black Lives Matter movement really became front and center in the news. It was just a few years ago for me, and that was when Philando Castile, a black man, was shot in his car while unarmed by a cop just 15 minutes away from my house on a road I frequent all the time. I never wanted to be racist. When I was growing up, the trend was to say that you're colorblind. It was well intended, but misguided. It was meant to communicate that you treat all people equally, that you're incapable of racism. Despite having no actively held prejudiced thoughts, I have an underlining mental framework of white supremacy that I inherited from my culture and society. I walked around the world knowing and believing all people are equal, but I guess it was when Philando was killed in my metaphorical backyard that I had to pause and question what was going on. I thought that the Black Lives Matter movement was a bit over the top. I had the impression that racism was really only manifested in the most rural parts of the South of the U.S., and any experience from a person of color that said otherwise, I dismissed as them having some kind of martyr syndrome or clinging to a past that is no longer relevant. In this time, I felt nervous. I was starting to doubt the narrative of the world being post-racism. But I didn't know where to have a discussion about it, especially given I have very few friends of color. And I got the impression from news and articles that I read that people of color are always angry when white people want to talk with them about racism or ask them questions about their experience. So I didn't. And instead, I just kept reading and researching and trying to inform myself. And when it was communicated to me by a person of color that they were willing to share their experiences with me and answer my questions, I eagerly asked away. And slowly but surely, I realized something big, thanks to the emotional labor that people of color did for me, for which I am deeply grateful. I realized that racism is still alive and well, sometimes blatantly, but definitely systemically and subconsciously within the individual, and it's in me. I started noticing and being honest about thoughts I would have as I would encounter images of people of color or people of color in my environment. Maybe I would notice a bit of surprise when I would see an image of a person of color as a doctor. Maybe I would look twice when I would see a video of a Muslim woman who kickboxes. Maybe I would realize how odd it was to see a group of people of color without a single white person in an image from another country. And maybe you hear this and think, well, that's not really racism. Well, I think it is, and it isn't, but maybe it doesn't really matter what we call it. But the point is, my mind, through media, education, society, and culture, has been primed to expect to see certain people in certain roles and not in others. And if my mind has been thusly primed, who else do you think has? What kind of power do you think they have in this world? And how is that affecting the lives of people of color? I'm demanding of myself to look deeper, to notice my own racism, even if it's subconscious, because me denying my racism isn't contributing to the solution. It's making it worse by shutting down the conversation entirely. I would like to challenge listeners to reflect on how, for most of us, at one point in our lives, we thought we knew everything. Yes, I'm talking about when you were a believer. We thought we had the right perspective on the world. No one could tell us differently. We were so self-assured. I'm not saying believe everything everyone tells you, but I am encouraging more agnosticism, perhaps. Anyways, I want to expand on one of the tools that I've been using to notice and challenge my internalized white supremacy, and at the same time, to expand my mind outside of just the limited connection that I have to my friends and my family, but beyond, to the people of my city, my state, my country, my continent, my planet. Lately, when I've been reading the news, if a country is mentioned that I know little about, and let's face it, I don't know much about many countries because I was educated with a strictly Western white history, but when the Christchurch, New Zealand shooting happened, I didn't have a strong emotional reaction. Like many, I wasn't surprised. I'm not surprised by any of these shootings anymore, and I've become emotionally numb because I didn't cause them and I can't do anything about them. So I just become aware of them, and that's all. But then I started doing something new. I pulled up Google Maps, which is so pleasingly spherish now, and I searched for Al Noor Mosque in Riccarton, New Zealand. It's located on the west side of Dean Avenue, hugged by homes on the north and south. Across the street to the east is a beautiful, big park with tall, spreaded trees. The mosque has a beautiful golden dome on top, which contrasts brilliantly against the suburban background. I could see myself there. I could imagine walking that street, living there. New Zealand didn't feel that far away. The congregants of the mosque didn't feel that far away. And that's when I started feeling it, that this was not right, that this was not okay for someone to go into this mosque and shoot people. This wasn't just a story. This happened, and this location is real, and I can find it on the same sphere that I live on. Beira, Mozambique. I read some news recently about a tsunami that devastated the area. I read about natural disasters in foreign countries all the time. This time, I zoomed into Beira, and I explored the streets, seeing the people walking around. The city already looked to be in kind of bad shape. I hurt to think that these people who are already struggling so much have been devastated by this tsunami. I read about the Saudis bombing Yemen. I zoomed in on Yemen. I found so many spots that looked like they had only just been bombed. Using Google Maps to encourage along empathy and to challenge the white supremacy ingrained in my mind has been so helpful for me to taking the remaining others and finding instead us. And so now some announcements. If you've been following us on social media, you already know that we are planning our next Everyone's Agnostic Retreat. It will be from October 4th through October 7th at a cabin in the Smoky Mountains of Tennessee. At this point, registration is open. Go check it out on everyone'sagnostic.com. Also, a heads up to anyone who lives near Kansas, I will be in Kansas City at the end of May for Dr. Daryl Ray's Memorial Day party. For those who don't know, Dr. Daryl Ray hosted the Secular Sexuality podcast and wrote the books The God Virus and Sex and God. And I was on his show under a different name a number of times to talk about my experiences with the mix of religion and sexuality and how to recover. So Daryl's my man. Straight from Daryl himself, he is inviting all Everyone's Agnostic listeners to receive a personal, special invitation from the High Priest of the Flying Spaghetti Monster. That is what Daryl calls himself. So if you want any more information, email me at everyone'sagnostic@gmail.com. It is in Kansas City during Memorial Day weekend. I would love to meet any of you listeners out there. Next, I was recently on Marissa Alexa McCool's podcast called Inciting Incident, if you want to check that out. And if you're looking for a way to say yes to what is without even using words, we have some badass stickers and magnets that you can purchase at everyone'sagnostic.com. And hey, all new Patreon supporters get one for free. Lastly, to contact us, shoot us an email at everyone'sagnostic@gmail.com. If you want to get more involved in our community, ask to be added to our private Facebook group, our virtual support group, and or our sexuality discussion group. And to stay informed, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And lastly, to all of our Maori listeners in New Zealand, Mauaru mote wa karango me te mea ea ki te aha. Yep, I said that totally right. How are you doing today, Jen?
Doing good.
Yeah?
Got a nice cup of tea here.
Lucky?
Yeah. Real trying to wake up fully so I can be on point for you guys.
Yeah. And where do you live again?
We live in Laramie, Wyoming.
Okay, Wyoming. Okay.
Yes. Home of the Not a Lot.
The not
a lot.
With Yellowstone and Grand Teton.
Okay.
And we here in Laramie are close to Colorado. So that's a talking point.
That's a bonus.
It is actually. We're only an hour from Fort Collins, Colorado, which is really cool. So we're real big beer drinkers since we're a beer drinking podcast as well. And they have, I think, something like 80 breweries there. My first thought was 120, but that seems too much. So I'm going to drop it back.
And that's just in Fort Collins is what you're saying?
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. Colorado itself has hundreds. Like you could just drink your way around the whole state.
Oh my God. I would get so sick. Oh.
The altitude's not good either. If you're not used to it, it'll make it even worse.
Yeah, my husband drove down to Colorado just like a couple of weeks ago to do a pot run. So.
Yes, that happens. But Wyoming's really cracked down on people that do that. Like now, it's like in Colorado, you can just do it like walking down the street, and then you cross the border into Wyoming, and it's like a federal offense if you have more than like 3 ounces or something.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
What if you have just like a little vape pen?
Still get you for that.
Jesus.
Yeah, they weigh the entire pen.
What?
Yep.
No. So you're from Georgia. Did you grow up in Georgia?
I did. Went to college there. As soon as I graduated from college, I left and never went back. I left several times during college, but when I would take a semester off every once in a while and, take a break. But yep, once I got my degree, that was it. I moved to Tennessee, so that wasn't such a huge break.
Oh.
After 3 years of Chattanooga, then I moved west, and I've been out here. I've lived in Montana, Arizona, California, and now Wyoming. So.
Did you like Chattanooga?
I love Chattanooga. I would move back there again if it wasn't so close to the surrounding area. And it's just, I can't take the heat anymore. Like I go back home to visit my family every once in a while. And the last time I was back there was Christmas, I think 3 years ago. And it was 80 degrees on Christmas Day.
Ugh.
Nope. Plus, the Trump election was starting to build up momentum there.
Yeah. Is there something you do for your job that made you travel that much? Or like what got you into all these different locations?
I discovered really early on I love to travel. I was raised evangelical deeply. Like, I had a very isolated childhood. I'm an only child. My parents raised me about 20 miles outside of town next to my mother's parents in a swamp. So there wasn't a whole lot of like other interactions with people. So I just read a lot, and it was just, I just couldn't wait to leave. So when I got old enough, like to start taking trips in high school that were, like school sponsored, I started doing that and just realized, wow, there's so much better than the middle of Georgia out there. That's great.
So how long have you been in Wyoming for? And are you like starting to itch to move again?
No, I'm pretty settled. Let's see. August will be 6 years since I've been here.
Oh,
I met my husband in Montana, and he's originally from Laramie, so that's what got me here.
Okay.
So we'll have been together for 10 years in March, actually. So Montana is kind of where he and I both want to settle, but it's beautiful and wonderful, and everyone wants to live there. So it's expensive and hard to get a job.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So is your husband, does he have a history also of being an evangelical Christian?
Oh, no. He was raised kind of tangentially Catholic. His mother's family are Spanish, and his mother was adopted. He's a freckled redhead. But
Yeah.
but his mom was like, I'm not going to raise my kids in any religion. They can pick it when they get old enough to understand it, which caused quite a kerfluffle that they weren't baptized. But, so no, I have incredible in-laws that are just like, you know what, whatever makes you happy and whatever you believe in, go for it.
Wow.
So,
That's really cool.
yes.
So how long were you like just in it, like the evangelical Christianity stuff, like from a very young age, just kind of inundated in it?
Well, I remember my earliest memories with church stuff started when I was early elementary, like, I don't know, 4, 5, 6-ish. And I remember I've always been a annoying person that won't stop asking questions. And I remember, like, at Sunday school, I was also a nerdy, like, science kid. So I was reading, like, Ranger Ricks and those kinds of things. And I remember the Sunday school teacher having to tell my mother to talk to me, to stop asking so many questions, because I could not get over Noah's Ark. Like, I couldn't understand it because I knew from Ranger Rick and, like, National Geographic Juniors and all of that there was lots of animals and lots of places. And I kept asking, what about penguins? And, what about kangaroos? And they got on a boat, but didn't they eat each other? And yeah, so I got in trouble. That's one of my earliest memories. But by the time I reached, like, junior high and high school, I had been fully inundated. My parents sent me to a private Christian school, all white, incredibly racist and like insular.
Yeah.
I remember having a science lecturer come in to talk about to explain how the earth was only like 8,000 years old, because if the sun was as old as it was, it would have been touching the earth at one point, because the sun is shrinking. I don't know. That's how good they were at science.
Yeah.
So yeah, by high school, I was doing mission trips and, the true love waits, pledged my virginity, all that good stuff that makes sex later not weird.
Yep.
So how old are you now?
I am 39.
Okay. And how old were you when you lost your virginity?
19.
Okay. So
20. 19 or 20.
Okay. Were you still kind of a Christian at that point?
Yeah, interestingly enough, I was going to a church at my college. This was my freshman, maybe sophomore year, and I ended up sleeping with the praise leader of the praise band at the church.
Oh my God.
So that ended up getting out and causing quite a oh, I'm a slut.
I mean, there's something kind of hot about that, because the praise leaders are usually like hella hot.
Well, there's a lot of charisma there, if nothing else.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, did you feel like a slut? Did you feel guilty?
Yes, I did feel guilty. I felt incredibly guilty for a long, long time. So it worked for a little while. Like, I mean, I didn't lose my virginity like in high school, but also I went to a gross private Christian school, and there wasn't exactly a lot of good options. But anyway, yeah, college was where I began the process of learning a lot of stuff about other religions, learning about other people, learning more about science, and realizing that I'd been just kind of kept
protected or
sheltered, I guess
Yeah.
is the right word. My father he's a retired correctional officer. He worked for the state prison in Georgia, so he's an interesting fellow. He used to help with executions, and he loves to talk about that
Oh my
sort of thing, and how
God.
he would shoot people in prison riots. He's an oddball sometimes, but he was really good friends with the prison chaplain, so he would bring home like the scared straight Christian propaganda that would
Yeah.
be shown to the prisoners, like the Tribulation series, and how the Devil's in Music, and bags of Chick tracts.
Mm.
And if you're unfamiliar with what those are, they're like crazy comic books for loony evangelicals that they're for kids. Like, you show them to kids, and at the end, like, you were either with Satan or Jesus. It's weird.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And so the college that you went to, that was, I assume, then like a public, non-private school?
no, it was a public university. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, that'll do it. Education will do it.
Yep.
So I'm curious, because you said that you did like the True Love Waits thing, which I also did. I signed up to stay a virgin until I was married twice because I like to do things efficiently, I guess. And so I really took that to heart, and I didn't have sex until I was like 21, and it was premarital, obviously, but it was kind of a big deal that I did it. Can you do you want to share like about like how that worked out for you? Like, did you take it really seriously? Did you struggle with the choices that you made? Does it still affect you these days, or is it just kind of like, fuck it, I've moved on?
Well, starting kind of from the first couple of questions, I did take it seriously at the time. My parents both are very, ooh, gross sex. Ugh, like, people on TV are kissing. That's disgusting. So
Yeah.
even from, it wasn't even like sex is a beautiful thing once you're in a married relationship. It's just gross. Like, ooh.
Yeah.
So combine that with Southern Baptist Church that won't stop harping on the dangers of sin when you're or dangers of sex when you're a teenager, and da 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 da. So I did take it seriously when it happened. I was honestly terrified of sex.
Mm.
I was going to get pregnant the first time I ever did it. I'm surely AIDS, and then go to hell. I mean, who wants to have sex with those as the end result?
Yeah.
The town that I lived in wasn't exactly. It was full of either rednecks or assholes or both. So it wasn't, I wasn't like, oh, I sure wish I could do that guy. Or, I'm also bisexual, but I was coming into understanding what that meant, surrounded by all this other negative impressions of sex. So going into college, I started meeting other people, and people that I was actually really attracted to, male and female, which caused its own set of problems. When I did end up having sex, it kind of was like a dam breaking.
Oh.
It obviously couldn't work out with me and praise leader guy for a multitude of reasons. And I found myself surprisingly not guilt-ridden, because it was also coinciding with, I think this is stupid. I think all this is bullshit. Why am I living with so much guilt? But it took till probably 25, 26 for me to say, no religion, I'm done with this. This is just guilt, and they're just trying to control me. But even to this day, sometimes, like, I have hang-ups with sex, which I think is probably true for anyone that's raised in our culture. I will sometimes sit down and think about my partners. I'm like, I've had this many women and this many men, and oh my God, my parents would just drop dead if they knew. So
Yeah.
it's a little bit there, but definitely I feel like I have gone past it much better than some other people, because I feel like I have had a lot of opportunities to learn more and expand my brain than some people that were raised this way and never were given a chance to like break out of it. So they probably are still wallowing.
Yeah.
Okay, but you're a lot more critical thinking type of person than the average. And so I can feel and just kind of imagine that as even a teenager or something in that Christian school, in that insular environment, only child, kind of the cognitive dissonance battle that was going on in your head.
Oh yeah. And
can you talk about that? And then how hard was it? I mean, these are things that we feel, Marie and I and all the listeners and former guests on this show, is how hard it was on our bodies, our minds, our souls, if you will, to climb out of that and wash off the gunk that, was, it was almost like the afterbirth of
Right.
having come through that. It just takes a while, right?
Oh, for sure, definitely. There wasn't a one event or one like snap moment. It had been like you were saying, it'd been something I've been struggling with for years. Like I can't remember a time I didn't feel like things were really weird. Like I read the Bible all the way through before I was in high school. Like I've probably read the Bible 10 times. I was the Bible drill state champion in Georgia 3 years in a row.
Wow.
Like, oh yeah, I could throw out Bible verses. I can still recite every book of the Bible.
Wow.
I would always spot contradictions, and like I said, I love science. So yeah, there was always this sense there. I think I was in a particularly unique place because I had been so alone a lot. A lot of people in the South and a lot of people in churches and that sort of thing. It's a very close knit, tight, familial type group. I'm an only child. I didn't have any cousins my age. I have one first cousin, and she's 13 years younger than me. Didn't have any other family that were around. I wasn't allowed to be in extracurricular activities like Little League or, the Girl Scouts or things like that because they were secular and they allowed African Americans in. My parents would not.
No way.
I didn't meet my first African American person until I was 16. And
oh my gosh.
There's a whole story with that, but because my parents found out because someone spotted me in town with my friend, my white girlfriend in the seat next to me, and her friend, he was sitting in the back, and that's, oh my God. So anyway, there was a huge dollop of racism thrown in there too.
So this is in the 90s then?
Yeah, this was 97, 96, 97.
Son of a bitch.
I know,
Look.
that blows my mind.
HBO has this documentary. I'm going to blank on the name of it, but it takes place in the town I grew up in. And the reason that the documentary started is because there's still segregated proms. There was still segregated proms 3 years ago. So
what?
Yeah.
What's the name of the town?
Southern Rights is the name of the documentary. The town's Vidalia.
Okay. Like the onion?
Like the onions. Yep.
So do you have any awareness around then how you were raised in a racist environment? And then I think it's basically my same question in regards to the pure love or true love waits thing, but with racism. Like you were raised in a racist culture. How did you detangle that? And do you find that the messages that you received as a young child still affect you today as you engage with people of color and that sort of thing?
I think everyone internalizes things and they can't help it, but I definitely know it. And like I was saying, I had spent so much time alone. I watched a lot of Comedy Central, and I watched a lot of I managed to get television stations my parents had no idea I could watch, basically. So when you're an only child, I spent a lot of time reading and learning about other things and watching and realizing how stupid everything was around me and racist and backwards and just gross. So, oh yeah, I knew it. I knew it early, but there was nothing I could do about it.
So
okay.
Let me ask about your personal space with Jesus, like in the quietness of your time alone with him. I mean, we can imagine obviously the tension that you're feeling with all these dissonances around you, including racism. And yet when you're face to face with Jesus in prayer, did that wrestling match, internal wrestling match take place there as well?
Oh yeah. I remember one particular conference. I think it was geared for young adults, I believe. And I just remember just laying under a pew and just sobbing, just crying and crying and crying like the dam had burst, because everyone was talking about, you need to feel this. When you get enough people around and the music's playing all this powerful, emotional, string strumming, you're going to feel something. But it's just because we're humans and that's what happens. But I just I remember so many times actually just crying and pleading please, like, talk to me, show me something. All these other people seem to be so gung-ho. And I was really bitter about that for a long time of, what's wrong with me? Why am I still the weirdo outcast that, I didn't like it when I was at home, and now, early college I was trying it with the Baptist Student Union. And just saying that's hard now. but I tried really hard, and I just couldn't convince myself of something that wasn't there after a while.
Did you wrestle with, the Bible says that it infers, at least in some places, that it's God who reveals himself to us, and in a way, kind of that choosing of the elect. And I know that if you're possibly feeling like everybody else has got the pixie dust, or, and yet I'm not feeling it, or I'm not, like you said, what's wrong with me? I don't know, kicking and scratching to get into the kingdom?
What of the Bible that talked to me more with that was how it's the questioning, and, God's going to make fools of the intelligent people.
Yeah.
That was what was triggering me more.
Yep. Oh, totally. I totally agree.
Yeah, it's that. I'm making this my own problem by all this doubt and all this questioning. This is why Satan's got his claws in me, is through that.
Mm-hmm.
By the time I got to college, and I remember there was this mass, like, sweeping of couples in the student union. God had told them they were going to get married, and they were all just like, we're going to get married. God has told us. And yep. I remember very distinctly going, they're crazy. They're insane. This is how Jonestown started. So by that point, I had gone past I want to be a part of this, to the very cynical, they're loons. So somewhere between like 16 and 20, there was a shift.
Oh, lucky. That's awesome.
Well, and that reminds me of, I gave away a car one time because God told me to.
Oh, fuck.
Ooh.
And I was talking to Dave Warnock about that the other day, and he goes, I did too.
Oh, my God.
Oh, man.
And there's these, I guess my point is that get married to somebody, give away a car. Like, big fucking decisions are made on the whim of our invisible friend whispering in our ear. And it's
the end of my story. None of them got married. Not a single one of them got married. So,
really?
Okay, good for them.
I found that hilarious. But yeah.
Well, I found a passage. There's a passage in, to use Trump's vernacular, 1 Corinthians.
Yeah.
I will destroy the wisdom of the wise, the intelligence of the intelligent. I will frustrate. Where is the wise person? Where is the teacher of the law? Where is the philosopher of this age? Has not God made foolishness the wisdom of the world? For since in the wisdom of God, the world through its wisdom did not know him, God was pleased through the foolishness of what was preached to save those who believe. Jews demand signs and Greeks look for wisdom, but we preach Christ crucified, a stumbling block to Jews and foolishness to Gentiles.
Yep. Paul was not much of a critical thinker.
Well, it's so funny you mention that, because that's exactly what kept me coming back. It's like, okay, this was supposed to be insulting to me. And if I don't let it trip me up, then what is it? If you fall on the rock, and better to fall on the rock and be broken than the rock fall on you and be crushed, is kind of, there's an old proverb, I think, about that. And so that's what kept me in for years, long after I had doubts and questions.
And that's why I keep saying that religion is just pure gaslighting. Like, you think straight for 1 second, and then they tell you that you're being deceived, that your heart is deceitful, that the devil is working in you or whatever. There's no way that you can actually have legitimate doubts about the religion without them telling you that you are fucked up. Like, it's there's no other options.
Yeah. It's my fault that I don't get it.
And that's going to keep you in.
Oh, and it's my fault I've let Satan in to, Satan's in my brain now. And that was also something else, that there was this entity of evil that both terrifies you to keep you in line, and then the critical thinking side of me is like, that's lunacy, and that's philosophically doesn't make any sense, because if God is perfect, how could evil exist? It was a lot of problems in my brain with those kinds of things. So
like, what age did you start doubting versus like when you finally deconstructed it all and left it behind? Like, how many years are we talking about in terms of your journey away from religion?
yeah, well, there were a couple of like momentous occasions. I remember took a semester off right before I graduated from college because a class that I needed to finish wasn't offered. So I was like, I'm going to take this extra time. I actually lived in Yellowstone for about 7 months, and then in Texas a little bit because I was dating this guy at the time, and that ended. But by the time I got done with this time away, and you can do a lot of soul searching in the mountains, and I had spent just a lot of just time with what I felt with things, because we didn't have television, any of that. I came away from that pretty much 100%. I'm done with religion. But my parents had gotten even deeper involved, like more and more and more and more so. So I was like, I'm going to have a talk with them when I get back. I'm an adult now. I'm 22. We can do this. This is going to be great. And I told her, in the house when I was like, I don't think I'm really a Baptist anymore, because I had a lot of, gay friends that even my parents knew. And I was like, I don't like the way that's, that was what I was going to try to explain. I don't like the way Baptists are so goddamn judgmental of everyone. But I didn't even get that far. Once I had started with, I don't believe I'm a Baptist anymore, she went hysterical and like started screaming, and I don't even remember what she was saying, but like her face turned like 3 different colors, and she jumped in the car and drove away. So I was like, well, I am not going to be able to talk to her about the dreaded A word ever.
What's your relationship with them now?
It's not good, not bad. My father, like I said, is kind of an oddball. He loves Trump. Trump is exactly right up his alley because he talks big and kind of violent and blah. So my father is a big believer in like demons and, possession. And when my grandfather died, he talked about how he had seen hell and he saw it in my grandfather's face. And this was when he was talking to my husband and I when we'd come to visit, and that we need to get back on the straight and narrow because he saw the face of my grandfather and his death mask. So, okay. So that's great. Can't really talk to him. My mom is really sweet, but honestly, if I never saw them again, would be fine.
Yeah.
And I hate to say that, and I'm an only child, and I feel like a jerk, but I'm supposed to go visit them sometime this spring, and I keep putting it off.
And they're still in Georgia?
Yeah. Yep. And it's gotten so much worse than when I was a kid with them. They're so...
Yeah. It is. It's you fell way far from the tree. I mean, it's almost like you're adopted. You don't have any of those genes, it seems.
I know. I feel really bad. I was like, you could have had another one who would have a trailer like in the backyard and 7 kids, and they could all go to church together and sit on the same pew at Mother's Day. And
So how have you found community? Because it sounds like, you can't really be yourself with your family. So have you found it to be challenging to find your own community, create your own community, or how have you gone about that?
Actually, not at all. It felt like my whole life was just waiting for me to get away. And once I did, I've traveled quite a bit and I've moved a few times, but everywhere I've lived, I have a great core group of friends that I'm still in contact with. I met these guys that we do this podcast once a week. And from them, there's an additional part of the community. Laramie has some bad history, with the Matthew Shepard murder and things like that, but it's not nearly as backwards as that being its history makes it sound. So no, there are universities here, so there's a lot of a variety of people here. It's not just this one town in Wyoming where everyone's from Wyoming and it's always been that way. It's a nice mix. So I know what I am looking for in people now. And I can find them, and I appreciate them, and I love them. I don't need blood relations to feel like I have a family.
Right.
Yeah. I think there's a fridge magnet that one of our local friends gave us that said something like, "Friends are the family you choose." You know,
Right, exactly.
And you didn't. None of us chose to be born. None of us chose the parents we landed with. And I think the more scientific and naturalistic we view the world, non-supernatural and less religious and less meaning-making, packed in, we realize that it really is no big deal and no love lost, and it doesn't have to be taken personal. I mean, it's going to be hard for people to not, probably, but it's okay that thanks, Mom and Dad, for life and for feeding me, and but
right.
I'm out.
You're
out.
Lovely
and,
people.
Good luck with your life. I'm out. And
I consider myself, quote unquote, much luckier than most people with that. My mother's father was a maniac. Like, he was a member of Aryan nations who was deeply entrenched in so many conspiracies. We never went to the moon. The Jews control all the money. He carried a gun with him everywhere. He threatened to kill like a couple doctors. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation was watching him. Family time was never enjoyable for me. Like, it was people who have a good, loving, tight, close-knit family that have to go through this. My heart goes out to them. And it sounds like, Cass, from when we had talked when you were on our show before, sounds like that was definitely something you had to go through.
Yeah.
With me, it was more of like, thank God I'm out of it. So.
Wow. That is, wow. I mean, you just continue to amaze me with your heritage and that area and what.
Yeah.
And, how far you've come.
So, Jenn, when the whole Trump election was happening, since you have this history in the South in a racist environment, did you count yourself among people who were not surprised that he came out as a front runner?
I counted myself surprised when Obama won. I was really surprised that the backwards country that I knew from so many places I've lived elected a black man with the name Barack Obama. I was more shocked with that than anything when Trump showing up. So I guess I'm very cynical. I was very pleasantly surprised with the Obama. Yes, I cried when he won. That was, yes. But the Trump thing, it was more of like a feeling of, God, I thought better of you guys than this.
Right.
We were doing so good. We had rainbow lights on the White House, and now this is happening. So I don't know that I was shocked. It was just more of like, well, fuck, I thought we had proceeded, but
yeah. I'm curious about, like, so you guys, Cass, you're kind of in the South-ish, and
sure.
And then Jenn, you came from the South. As a quote unquote Yankee that's in Minnesota, I've always been really curious because, like, I know that I think the North and the South, we talk to each other in really cruel ways sometimes. Like, you guys might say, "Hey, you damn Yankees," and we might say, "Oh, you like rednecks," and whatever. But I'm curious because, like, can you talk a little bit about what it's like to grow up in the South? Like, I don't know exactly what I'm asking. I guess I just want to, like, purge, like, stereotypes from my head and kind of, like, hear about the diversity of the people in the South. And then maybe also, in addition to that, to maybe get your insight into why you think some people in the South cling so tightly to white nationalism or white pride, and where you think, that might come from. Is that a fair question?
I think I got what you're saying. But I'm not going to purge any stereotypes. I'm probably going to make them worse.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're not from her.
Okay.
For me personally, like I said, I had very little interaction with people of color until I was, almost an adult. But it's worse than you think, at least where I grew up. The town I grew up in, Like I said, segregated proms, all that sort of thing. There was a little tiny town, the county over, a couple counties over, really close by. And the mayor of the town refused to carry $5 bills because it had Lincoln on it. Because Lincoln, the Civil War is still very much alive in a lot of the minds in history. They're very deeply entrenched in that still. I remember asking someone, there's a line of clothing brand called Dixie Outfitter. I don't know if Cass has seen that possibly. I don't know what part of the South you're in.
No.
But it's a outdoor brand with a big dose of Confederate flags. So there'll be like a big white-tailed buck on it with a Confederate flag draped on its antlers or something ridiculous like that. And I said something to my first fiance because I got engaged while I was in the South at one point. That's a totally different story too. But I was like, that war's been over for a long time. When are we going to get past that? And he rounded on me and was just like, I am shaming our culture and our heritage. And I was taken aback. So that part's really true. And he was a college, he was an electrical engineer, college educated, not an idiot. So it's not just like these little pockets
backwoods.
Pockets of Appalachia that think this way. It's deeply, deeply entrenched. And when you're the one that's been in power and only the one that's been in power, you're not going to notice it at all that you're in power. You're just going to notice it when the other people start rising up. One really quick illustration. The last time I went back home to visit my parents, and my husband came with me, and the last time I went to their church, because I would go to church with them, it was very important, and I thought I could handle it, but the last time I realized I couldn't. We went to the young married couple's Sunday school. And I think that was the third time he and I had gone to that. And every single time they wanted to talk about gay marriage, because this was before gay marriage had been made legal, but it was definitely on its way there. So this one particular young man was talking about how he had to have a conversation with a woman who was a proponent of gay marriage, and was giving him, I don't know, surely some sort of statistics or something about why gay marriage should be legal. And he leans forward and props his elbows on his knees and says in this very serious voice, and folks, I have never felt so persecuted in my life.
Oh my God.
And I exploded some noise. It was kind of a cough. It was kind of a laugh. It was kind of like a scream. And my husband grabbed me like the back of my neck. Like he was just like, oh my God. So I turned it into a cough because I was heading for him. I was like, oh, tell me about persecution, straight white Christian man in the South. I want to hear all about it from you. I was so livid. I got up and I left, and I went and sat in the parking lot until it was over. And I have to this day never gone back. And I can't. I won't, and I can't, because that is just the mentality of, we are Christians and the world is against us here in the Deep South, where there's a church on every corner.
It is hard. No, good.
Why do you think they feel that way?
Because it's easy. They've been in charge. They are right. They're going to heaven. White Jesus is on our side. We can look down on everybody else. What we say goes. It's easy. We don't have to think about the hard things. We don't need to recycle. Jesus is coming back. My mother told me that.
Oh my
God. I was looking for a recycling bin in her house. Oh, honey, we don't need to worry about that. The Lord's coming back before anything's going to happen on this planet.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's a lot harder to worry about things than it is to be like, God's got it.
Yeah. And so then how do you choose to, how do you navigate engaging with these people? Do you just avoid encounters with them, or have you, do you fully engage with them and argue with them, or how do you handle that huge difference between yourself and this culture?
Well, other than when I visit my parents, I don't have any interactions with it, and it's been Christmas was 3 years since last time I went back to Georgia, so I just don't find myself in those situations. Wyoming's plenty conservative, but it's not like that.
Okay.
I've never had anything like that happen out here. The South is on special breed.
Yeah.
But yeah, so if something were to come at me, I guess it would just depend on the situation. Like I've had people try to proselytize to me on the street, and I would just say, "Thank you, but no." I mean, if you want to debate me, I probably know more at the Bible than you do. But I just don't find myself in the situations, and I definitely don't seek them out. But were I to go back, if I do go back in the spring, and anything short of just like humiliating my parents, I wouldn't avoid it.
Yeah.
I mean, I do love my parents. If they knew me, if they knew who I was, I mean, my mother's told me if I had to make her choose between her family and the Lord, she's going to choose the Lord.
Yeah,
So,
I'm not surprised. Yeah.
so it's just, I just let it go. My doctor will give me a double prescription of Valium before I go. And I just wait it out.
Yep.
So you're one of the co-hosts of Waiting for Wrath, a podcast, and you know, I imagine, I don't know if you're like, you had me on, and I'm an ex-Christian, and I imagine you've talked to, you know, but just in general, being able to talk openly and unafraid and unembarrassed and unashamed to, in some ways, even mock these Christian notions, and even the
we do a lot of mocking.
Yeah. and how cathartic has the show been for your ex-Christian exodus?
It's been far more cathartic than I could have ever hoped for. It was something I didn't know I needed. I had never even referred to myself as an atheist, I don't think, until learning to not be afraid of the term here with these guys. I would be non-religious in my mind, I guess, because, you know, the word atheist is so terrifying and it's so loaded, and, you know, the studies show that people trust atheists about as much as they do rapists. So the word needs to lose some of its stigma for sure. But no, it's been great because we talk about all kinds of topics. It's not just religion, but it all is looked at through this lens of realism and skepticism and humanism. We don't try to always just be jerks and make fun of religion. We do that a lot, but we also, you know, we're very, you know, pro LGBTQ work. We have Big Gay Jim on. He's the diversity coordinator on campus here. He was actually good friends with Matthew Shepard and was part of the first groups of the angels with the wings that block like Fred Phelps's Westboro Baptist and things like that. He was one of the first ones to do that. So we have our bona fides when it comes to that. So, I mean, I've met so many diverse people through the podcast, through having guests on, meeting other shows. There's 4 of us. Steve and I, Steve's father was a Baptist minister. So he came from an evangelical background, but if you think I got out of it easy and early, Steve was like, this is stupid by the time he was 6. It sounds like he was just like, I want to sleep in. And you've never met a more critical thinker.
Yeah.
Aaron was raised atheist, and Shay is just kind of Shay. He's whatever. There's beer. So.
So how did you end up getting involved in this podcast?
That's one of my favorite stories. It really is.
Ooh.
So it actually tells a lot about our who we are as a show. I knew Shay from a bar that was near where my husband and I lived. He was a bartender. So Shay's a big, goofy, hairy guy. He's called the Yeti. And he had told Aaron and Steve about me, apparently, and that we should all meet, that we'd get along. And I didn't know any of this. This was completely unbeknownst to me. Well, my husband and I were at that particular bar one night, and Shay brings Steve and Aaron in to meet me, but I guess forgot. And then he ended up getting drunk at the end of the bar and like just going to sleep or something. My husband and I were sitting at the bar, and my husband's a social butterfly, so he had flitted off to go try to get votes or something for when he's mayor. I'm not sure. But
God.
I was sitting next to Steve, and Aaron was on the other side, and they were talking about some comic book stuff, I believe, and it was it's a conversation on Galactus, which is a villain in Marvel, and the destroyer of worlds. And I interrupted it and said, by the way, that's wrong. It's this. And hey, I'm joining your conversation because I'm bored. So by the end of the evening, they were like, hey, we have a podcast. Do you want to be on it? And Shay happens to wake himself up to go, oh, you met her. There she is. So I introduced myself to my own blind dates and didn't know.
Nice.
So.
Nice.
It's destiny.
Yeah, kind of. Yep.
And how long have you guys been doing that show together?
This month, actually. And it might be, I think the 13th of this month will be 3 years for me.
Oh, wow.
So, and the show had been going on, 4 years? Aaron's saying 4. This is 2019. It has been 4 years. Yep. So, yeah. And they had done it about 5 months before I had jumped in. So we're going to be recording episode 223 today after we're done talking.
Nice.
Awesome.
Have you ever gotten to meet any of your listeners?
Oh, yeah. We have a surprising number. We've got a few here in Wyoming, which for a state of 500,000 people, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
And we've had some that have traveled through this area that stop in to see us, and they always bring us beer because that's a big part of what we do. We went to ReasonCon. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with that, but
Yeah, I've been there.
oh, okay. We were at the one 2 years ago.
Yeah.
The third one, the last one,
Well,
apparently.
I was there too.
Ships passing in the night. So we got to meet a lot of folks there, and we've got people in Fort Collins, and we've had other hosts come through. They always know we've got plenty of beer, so I think that we have a carrot to dangle in front. So.
Yeah, now I had this idea, Cass, that we need to make our show like have a focus on like candy, because then like whenever we meet any listeners, they'll bring us candy.
I don't need candy.
Hey, it works.
That's fine. More for me.
We've had it shipped to us from all over the country. We've even had a couple of our listeners in Germany have flown to the United States, bringing beer for us to mail to us.
Oh,
so
wow.
Yes, we have a listener in Australia who's been trying to get something set up with a package store here in town to get some to us. So
Nice.
Yeah, get a theme. It works.
Yeah.
Something edible. Okay, got it.
So let's get a couple of questions, personal questions. What do you think happens when we die?
I hate to admit it, but nothing. I think we just go back to the earth. I would like to be put in one of those tree pods. I'd love for the idea of me, the core that is me, to go on to be something else that I would be aware of, but there is absolutely nothing that leads me to believe that. So
yeah,
I'm kind of the Houdini that way. I'd love for it to be proven, but I will disprove it until.
Do you have any tattoos?
I don't. My husband and I, we're always made fun of by his entire family because they are very tattooed. And for my 29th birthday, I was in San Francisco. I've always wanted a wolf paw print because I used to study wolves in Yellowstone. And I wanted a wolf paw print on my right shoulder. But I was too drunk from my birthday and they wouldn't do it. So that's the closest I got.
Oh, they won't tattoo you if you're drunk.
Not if you can. No.
Okay.
I think you need to be in your right mind to make a lifetime decision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that you like to travel. Have you done any out of the country traveling? And if so, where?
Well, I taught for a summer in Poland.
Okay.
When I was about 20. It was a school program. It was great. Really, really loved it. Got to kind of immerse myself in the city. Lived with the host family for a week in Weimar, Germany. Been to Italy. Florence is my favorite city in the world. Been to Amsterdam 4 times. Paris 2 or 3. I love to travel overseas. But don't want to until things kind of settle down a little bit with how we're just being a ridiculous country. So
Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to ask if you had any trips coming up.
Georgia, supposedly in the spring.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah.
I have a wedding to go to in Boise and a bachelorette party in Lake Tahoe coming up in the next few months. So those are the fun ones.
Well, you might have to come through Nashville, so maybe.
Oh, is that where you're at, Nashville?
I could meet you with a beer for a beer.
Yes, that is the price.
So, do you have any pets?
I do. I have a precious little princess named Morrigan. She is a adopted fostered kitty. She is fluffy and has a little white patch on her chest and is so incredibly spoiled. I adopted her while my husband was in San Diego on a work trip in July, and he loves her now. It took some convincing, but
I'm just trying to imagine this happening. It's like, bye, honey, have a good trip. Off to the Humane Society. Grab a cat.
It was kind of
You'll
like
have to
that.
accept it.
Well, I had a friend of mine, a coworker, had found a couple of abandoned kittens a few months before, and I had ended up bringing one of them home, and things were going great until my husband accidentally dropped the couch on the kitten.
No.
Yes, it was as terrible as you could possibly imagine. So while he
that's
was gone,
so traumatic. That's
yes,
horrible.
it was terrible.
Oh,
It was
gosh.
terrible for both of us. He was so upset. So he was kind of like, never a cat again. But I was like, no, I need one now. So yeah, so I felt like he owed it to me. So
Yeah. Yeah, I just got a new cat too, and her name is The Future is Femao.
oh,
Nice.
I love
I like it.
Yes.
It's very clever, very feminist. I like it.
Female?
more
Female.
Okay.
female.
How do you spell that?
Female,
Mao. Female.
like meow.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's a pun. It's funny.
I wanted to do a punny name for her, but she's witchy, so I named her Morrigan after the Irish goddess. So, because she looks
fair
like
enough.
a kind of witchy black cat. So,
Yeah.
So, Jen, do you have any pet peeves?
God, how much more time do we have? I'm just probably my biggest one is just embraced ignorance, like ignorance that's lauded, which seems to be such a thing right now. Of like, I don't need no science to tell me what to do. I think that makes me angrier than anything. If you don't know something, that's fine. I'm perfectly okay with, because I don't know a lot of things.
Embrace your agnosticism.
But yeah, people that just celebrate their own ignorance, it's just I don't think anything can make me angrier.
Yeah, I think one of the best things about my deconversion is realizing that I don't know shit.
Yes, exactly.
So it disturbs me when I come across people who are so fucking sure of so many things, and I'm like, nah. The information you're using to make your choices is not a reliable source of knowledge, and so you're not right.
Exactly. You need more than one book.
Yeah, exactly.
Speaking of books, what are you reading these days?
Well, I'm currently in the middle of a graphic novel series called Fables, excuse me. It's if you've ever seen Once Upon a Time, the ABC show, that's a cheap ripoff of this comic series, but it's about like fables from all of our like Little Red Riding Hood and Snow White and the Big Bad Wolf. They all live in New York City now because they were kicked out of their lands by this evil emperor, and it's but it's R-rated. It's really a lot of fun, and there's a lot of like existential ideas and like theoretical questions that are posed when you are an immortal versus, that you're an immortal that can be killed. I don't know. It's a lot deeper than it sounds like being about a bunch of fairy tale characters.
Cool.
Yeah.
After that, I'm going to read Dune because Aaron is making me read Dune.
Oh my, yeah.
I've not got into that.
For sci-fi nerds, that's the Bible almost.
That's kind of what I've been hearing. Our library had it in its free stack a couple days ago, so I was like, well, I don't have an excuse now.
So one last question: what are you proud of?
Well, I'm proud that I am where I'm at. I think I had some things stacked against me.
Sure.
In addition to all the weird stuff with my family, I was very, very, very overweight when I was younger. I was 230 pounds by 12. And that doesn't help your life choices a lot either. Especially like I had a trailer with a felon as a husband and 7 kids in my future if that kept going. So I just decided that wasn't the life, any of it for me. So I think that takes some strength to
Hell yeah.
to do that.
Yeah, it really fucking does.
Wow. The road less traveled made all the difference.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen that movie, The Butterfly Effect?
Yeah, with Ashton Kutcher.
I'm familiar with it, and I'm familiar with the butterfly effect. I haven't seen the movie, but I know what it.
Well, the movie takes I think at least 3 different directions depending upon how one incident played out, or and it's just it reminds me of the concept of the multiverse. Well, there's a universe somewhere where Marie and I never met, or whatever.
Right.
And especially to look back and be able to see the trajectory that your life was on, and really the horror of that, and then to open your eyes into reality and find yourself where you are with who you are, and and how, hell yeah, I'd be proud of that too.
And I like how self-sufficient it's made me. Too.
Yeah.
I don't know. So that's what I'm proud of. I'm proud that I'm me. So,
and I love that question too, Cass. We should do that every time, because those of us who were raised Christian, pride is a bad word.
7 deadly sins.
Yeah. But then hearing you, Jen, talk about what you're prideful about, I just warm up inside, and I'm so excited for you. Like that's a great topic.
You can absolutely take pride too far. I mean, it can be a bad thing, but
I mean, we elected somebody who does that.
Oh God. I'm not proud of my country.
Yeah. No, not right now. No.
Well, honestly, it's been a pleasure to get to know you from an hour ago till now. I don't know. I just feel like even when I was on your show, I mean, you were just one of many co-hosts, and we just talked briefly and stuff. And so an hour ago, I was like, okay, we're going to interview this girl named Jen. All right, we'll see where this goes. And in 1 hour, I am like Marie was saying, my heart is warmed. I think I'm encouraged. I feel like my day's going to go better having met you, and you're an encouragement.
Oh my goodness.
It's beautiful.
I'm tearing up, folks. Well, I really, really appreciate the chance to come on and just spend a lot of time talking about me.
Yeah, right?
But
it's a beautiful thing. You are beautiful.
Oh, well, thank you.
So, Jen, we're going to wrap up for today, but thanks for being on the show. Do you want to let our listeners know where they can find your podcast or find you on social media?
Yeah, sure. We are Waiting4Wrath, and that is the numeral 4. We are found in pretty much all the major, like iTunes, Stitcher, all the ones that you use. Our website is waiting4wrath.com. You can get all the episodes and learn about the hosts and all that good stuff. And facebook.com/waiting4wrath. We are not safe for work. We say a lot of profanity. We drink. Sometimes we drink too much. And we do not appreciate judgment. But we talk about everything from science to religious issues to what's going on just kind of in the world today. And we try to be funny about it. We can't always promise. I usually will tell an interesting story of some kind, like history of, like I'd done the history of Heaven's Gate at one point, things like that. And we always end the show on a Faith and Humanity Restored, so we can send everyone out on at least one good note. So
I like it.
Yeah, it's a good show.
Well, that's cool. Thanks for coming on the show, Jen.
No, I really, really appreciated the opportunity to chat with you guys. And this is a great thing, I think, for people who have had a history of religiousness that has gone away. And everyone needs, I think, a chance to feel like they're not alone.
Well, you and I haven't talked in a while, it seems. I don't know.
No, yeah, I've been busy.
Me too.
Yeah. You're headed out to Oklahoma today?
Yeah. My mother is 90, lives in a nursing home, and she got the flu, and it's really taken a toll on her. Yeah. And she's having trouble shaking it. And, my sisters are kind of worried, and so is she. So I'm going home to sit with her for a couple of days and by that I mean just sit with her, because she's on like cough medication or something that's got her kind of loopy.
Yeah.
You know, other than the fact that she's 90, but like, and she's got a little bit, like a lot of her siblings died of, you know, with Alzheimer's and such. And so she's got a little dementia setting in. So she can have the same conversation 15 minutes later, you know, type thing sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, and maybe we could talk about that for a second as far as the, you know, the atheist death experience is that, and we all go through this, even Christians. I mean, because Christianity is just a overlay of some sort. I mean, the truth is that we're all going through this, and you get to this place where she is miserable, and we will. I love her to death, and we'll miss her to death, and I certainly am not anxious for her to leave the earth. But there's that thing that says she is miserable, and she sits and I feel guilty being 700 miles away from her. You know, my three sisters all stayed right there in the area in Oklahoma, and I'm the one that moved away. And that's something that, you know, bugs me as far as abandoning her and all that. And I think Jenn's story is actually relevant to this, because she decided to move, and she decided she wanted no part of that life, that lifestyle, that region, that geography. And these are the people that brought you into the world, but you don't owe them anything. I mean, I know that sounds cold, but we don't owe them anything. And that's the other side of the story of me moving away is like, yeah, a part of me's guilty, but a part of me said, you know what, I don't want to live my life just to, you know, because you miss me. I don't want to be in Oklahoma, just like she didn't want to be in Georgia. So, I don't know. You got any thoughts on that?
No, just that you're right, and that that can create like a codependent relationship where you're just living for someone else. And I think a lot of our culture thinks that is the pinnacle of love, that you sacrifice who you are and your identity and your wants and your needs for someone else. Yeah,
that's kind of the Christian thing to do, right? Lay down your life for your friends.
It is.
Well, so I don't know. I just really enjoyed that part of her story, and you know, I get this fucking way every time. You know, it's a Sunday morning or a Saturday morning, and I'm like, okay, I gotta go do another interview, and I'm tired and often hungover from a Saturday night binge or something, and I get on here and I just fall in love with the guest, and I just she went from a stranger to somebody that I know I could be friends with. In 1 hour's time.
Yeah, I felt the same way. I was like, I don't want to do this. I had a long night last night and slept at 2 a.m. and just had lots of interpersonal drama last night. And I don't know if I have the capacity to hear another person's story, but like, it was really moving to hear experience. Plus, like, I was really intrigued by a lot of the parts of her experience, in that, like, I'm really, really interested in that dynamic of North versus South, the Southern mentality, the racism, and why it's there and why is it still there. And I one note that I wrote down that I think we even talked about in the show, but like, just generally, I was just so impressed at like the way that she was raised. Not only was she raised in evangelical, but she was also raised in this Southern racist culture. And she just had the self-knowledge or the self-confidence or strength to just be able to say, this is bullshit. Yeah. And to get out of it. And it sounds like college and education helped with that a lot too. But I didn't really get a sense that she really doubted herself a whole lot, in terms of like that she didn't doubt her doubts a whole lot.
Well,
like
she had to in order to stay Christian all those years, because I think at a young age she was already she has a great mind. Yeah. And she was seeing holes all along. And so she had to suppress some of those doubts, but eventually they were just going to be too much to keep down.
Yeah, I was just really impressed with, you know, that's the environment that she was raised in. And then now where she finds herself is just such a stark contrast. And I love those stories where you're raised in, well, I don't love that you're raised in an indoctrinated, oppressive culture, but I love hearing these stories of overcoming it, because that is a lot of strength to fight that stuff and to feel confident in your ability to critically think about what you're being spoon-fed by the people who have power over you as a vulnerable child. That's hard work.
Absolutely. And you don't really have, I think the odds are you're not going to make it out. And so she's an exception, I think. And because of her inner core strength to trust herself and, thus be an exceptional person. And that's why she could say, I'm proud of that. And, well, she should be. Now, one thing she said about her pet peeve, which is that I think it was something along the lines of willful ignorance or something, right? Yeah. Yeah. And I just want to toss out that I don't think that that's a thing. I mean, I think there might be some people that self-delude and know they're doing it, but I think the majority of people, even those people back there where she's from, they think they're doing the right thing. They think that they're on the side of truth.
No, you're right. I think maybe it's more of a pedantic thing. Like it's not willful ignorance, but it's like unwarranted confidence, unchecked confidence, more than willful ignorance, maybe.
Yeah. Well, and actually, now that I'm thinking of it, to be my own devil's advocate, there are some amazing things going on right now, especially like with climate change or anything where there's evidence, and people have access to that evidence. And so that may be what she's talking about as far as willful ignorance. Like, so the first time that somebody comes to you and says, hey, we are destroying the earth, it's really going to get bad for future generations if we don't stop some things. And a person says, no, I don't think so, without ever Googling it. That's willful ignorance, right?
Well, yeah, there's that plus another additional factors that the people in her life have, in that they think that Jesus is coming back. Because I used to think that too. Yeah, I didn't really get super worried about what we were doing to the environment. It didn't mean that I intentionally tried to make it worse, but I didn't feel really stressed out to try to be better about it. And
well, it's going to get tossed aside like an old garment. New heaven, new earth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Speaking of stupid things we used to say and believe, I was reading. We have wonderful, for our listeners that don't know this, we have 2 wonderful sites that are private Facebook groups where love and congregation and community and encouragement goes on every day, all day. People from around the globe, and there's 2 groups. There's one that's Middle Tennessee, and there's one that's global, but they're secret and they're private, so people that are not out of the closet can say whatever they want to say and be free to slam Christianity or just whatever. And a former guest of the show, Elisa, posted this week. Dear non-existent God, I was a fucking idiot, and I thought I was so fucking clever. Religion makes you say some stupid shit. And then what it is it's a memory from 7 years ago. Like Facebook throws up something that you posted 7 years ago, and she had posted this. There is an article in the local paper about a new study that shows that spanking causes developmental damage. Duh, that's the goal. Damage the development of antisocial, disrespectful, dangerous, hurtful, and criminal behavior. So she kind of spun it around to say, yeah, it's causing developmental damage. It's damaging the things that I want to damage and impede in my child's development. But she's saying now, I can't believe I said that, or whatever.
Yeah.
And then the whole thread becomes, hey, let's all contribute something that we used to say that we now think is stupid. And another former guest of the show, April, wrote, I was thinking of posting a question about the group to tell the most idiotic Christian thing they have said. Mine would be saying that a tornado ripping apart my town was a display of God's power. What the fuck? A listener named Leah said, oh, how about people just need to learn how to keep their pants on? Or maybe the classic, but why did she even put herself in that situation? you know, and she's saying, you know, I used to think these things. Even this week, there was a hearing in Washington, like in the House, and I don't know these people's names. I can't remember names very well, but this is a black congresswoman who's been in the news a lot lately. I think she's running for president. I'm not sure. But she's drilling another person about this blaming and shaming of victims when it comes to sexual assault. And this woman was saying, the woman that she was kind of screening, or, you know, I don't know why she was talking to her, but she just kept saying, well, all we're doing is we're saying that, just like, she didn't use this metaphor, but it was similar. Just like we put locks on our doors, there are things that women can do that are smart to help prevent these crimes from happening. And she was referring to, don't get drunk in public place, don't wear clothes that are provocative, all this blaming and shaming. And what I hear, and I'm telling you, I mean, I'm talking about things we used to think and believe, that if you are steeped in the patriarchy, you can hear that and go, yeah, it makes sense. We put locks on our doors. That's just common sense. You're a woman, and you know that we live in a culture that's dangerous for women, so live accordingly.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you're basically saying it's okay that our society is dangerous for women. And as opposed to, no, we kind of need to change society so that a woman can wear what she wants and drink as much as she wants in public, just as much as a man can.
Yeah.
Now, that might be turning the Titanic, but we got to start.
Yeah. Because, I mean, it's not our fault. We shouldn't be the ones that are having to change our behaviors to accommodate the men who are being told that they can't control themselves. We need to have more conversations about men.
Yep.
And we need to have more conversations about rape culture.
Yep.
And then in that rape culture conversation, we're probably going to talk about, like, religion and how that feeds into the objectification of women, and then the whole slut thing. Oh, which I have a slight tangent, if I may.
Sure.
I was seeing my therapist this week, and I don't think I've told the listeners yet, but I have a new boyfriend, and
this is boyfriend number 2.
This is
after husband number 1. Right.
I don't even know what my life is anymore. It's so amazing. So anyway, like, I was talking to her about it and just being like, oh man, like, the first time I had sex with him was kind of just like, whoa, because, like, I'm thinking in my head, wow, this is like the 5th person I've ever had sex with. Like, who would have thought I would reach such numbers? Like, like, originally thinking that it was only ever just going to be one. And so, like, it was like this very, like, profound moment for me to think about that. And so, like, a little bit later on, she's like, so it sounds like maybe you're experiencing, like, some slut shaming or something. And I'm like, what? No, when did I say that? She's like, oh, that thing that you said earlier about your 5th partner. I'm like, oh, no. That wasn't slut shaming. That was slut cheering.
Yeah. Pride.
Because I was like, no, yeah, good for me.
Was that a leap for her?
No, I think she just misunderstood what I
Sure.
was saying earlier,
Well,
so I
easily.
just corrected her. But, like, I don't know, like, I'm making it work, like, and God, this is turning into a whole other conversation, but, like, after, this is very personal, but, like, last week, like, I had sex with 3 different guys in 1 week, and, like, at the end of the week, I'm looking at myself and I'm like, I don't really feel like a chewed up piece of gum.
Yeah.
I don't really feel like a flower that's just been touched a whole bunch and is super oily and gross. I don't really feel like construction paper that's been glued together and torn apart and glued together and torn apart and glued together and torn apart. I don't feel that. I actually feel like super loved and, like, incredibly sexy, and they were wrong. Like, I just told Keith, I was like, they were wrong. They were wrong. Like, this feels good. This is good. And I don't know, like, why our culture is the way that they are, like, trying to control my body and trying to make my body something exclusive that is something owned by just one person, and that I'm a bad person if I want to have more than one person. Like, I don't understand.
Yeah.
where those messages come from, other than blatant like female ownership. But
Yeah, well, I
I'm
think you
just
do
here
know.
to tell you that they're wrong.
Yeah, and just for any listeners that might be confused about all those anecdotes that you just referred to, these are exercises that Sunday schools and youth groups take their kids through to demonstrate this is what it's like if you are sexually promiscuous or more than with one person, or you're a fornicator, is that you're a chewed up piece of gum. They do that thing to where that thing. And the crate paper, or the all kinds of exercises to demonstrate to you how you're going to feel, and you're saying, nope, I've been there, done that. I don't feel that way. They were wrong.
Nope, definitely not.
So where it comes from, obviously, is that the God figure is omniscient and omnipresent, and has a standard of how he wants the planet to go. And Adam and Eve fucked it up, and so he's just asking us, okay, it's a fallen planet, but in the meantime, let's try to make the best of it by not sinning and by doing these things. And so I need for you guys to X, Y, and Z. And one of those X's is, but these are my rules for sex. So the all-seeing eye, this is, in order for our crops to prosper and for life to be good and for us to be happy, it's only accessible by way of God's word and God's truth. And you know this, but I'm just saying, the reason that the society wants to control your body is that God needs you to control your body. And if you're not doing it, then we're deputized by him to help you shape up or ship out, or not only just go to hell, but you're actually a problem for society. Gays are the reason that we have tornadoes. All this sexual promiscuity is hurting God's feelings. And because God loves us and he chastises those he loves, he's going to send tornadoes.
Yeah.
Speaking of stupid things we used to say. Yeah.
Right. And did you know that I was raised in a way to believe that being gay or whatever wasn't really a thing until just recently, like the 90s, because culture, like I was raised to believe that things, make America great again. America was great back in the 50s or whatever, or, humanity was great back in the day when we were monogamous and when we were marrying and when we didn't have premarital sex. It was great back then. But now in our culture is this evil time where people think that they can do whatever they want, and they're going out and sinning, and they're being gay, and they're being lesbian and whatever. And only now, like, getting more informed, have I realized, oh no, like literally there have been gay and lesbian and trans and asexual and poly people for like ever
since there was humans. I mean, it's how we come out.
It's been around for forever, and it's absolutely normal. And to an extent, I imagine that they're even whitewashed in history too, because I think for as long as they've been around, which is forever, I think some cultures see it as bad, but then some cultures see it as good. Like I've read books about transgender folks and like how some cultures like esteem them, like they have like a special place in their society because of being transgender. So like there's varied experiences across cultures in terms of how they deal with all that. But anyway, just point being, like my experience had been that this is a recent thing, and that it's super, super sinful, and that we need to make America great again.
Yeah. Well, we've deviated from the course.
Right.
This is not how it's supposed to be going, and we're going off the rails here.
Yeah.
And we got to get it back on to the literally straight
yeah.
and narrow. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
I guess congrats, man, on your exploration of yourself, your life, your sexuality, and
thanks.
Your the capacity to be ethically non-monogamous.
Yeah,
you're a trailblazer.
It's, oh my God, it's just like so much fun. And I met the wife last week, and she and
the wife of your second boyfriend.
That's correct.
Okay.
I just get like flabbergasted when it's just like, it's all so surreal, and I'm so happy. But yeah, she and I went out for a date last week just to kind of get to know each other and just like talked and talked for like 2 hours. And then by the end of it, she's like, well, you know what? I love you. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so amazing. Like,
Does she have boyfriends too?
no, she doesn't. She kind of was interested in poly, but has had poor experiences with dating. And so was kind of shying away from it. But like after she and I connected, she kind of felt encouraged and excited. And she's like, I don't know, maybe I could do this. And, you know, she's had her hesitations about poly, but my boyfriend is like, this is kind of who he is, and he doesn't plan to not be poly. So she's trying to wrap her head around everything. And like, God, she's just so fucking impressive. And then like the next night they have a 2-year-old, and the next night she messages me and sends me a little audio file. And it's of her putting her son to bed and teaching him how to say my name.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Daddy's new girlfriend.
Yeah.
Is
Like
Marie.
it just fucking warmed my heart. She's like, hey, say Marie. And he goes, Marie. Like he adds like a T at the end of it. And she's like, say Marie, Marie. And I was like, oh my God. And like, now we're talking about like how like we can take him, the little 2-year-old, like me and my boyfriend could just go and take him out and like bring him to the children's museum and like give her the fucking day off. Like she's a painter and she hasn't painted in years because of having like the kid and all this stuff. And like, there's so many poly benefits going on here right now where we can be supportive of her. We can watch the kid while she goes out on dates and shit. Like it's just been, it's like tribal, like this very tribal thing, but with sex also. So it's like, it's great. Like, and I, you know, she's still working through some stuff, but you know, she's on board and she sees the good in it. And actually all of us in our little polycule are going to hang out. Is that a new word for you? Polycule?
That's totally a new word.
Yeah.
Learned it.
It's like the molecule of relationships in your particular unit. So like,
got it.
Yeah.
I saw the picture immediately.
Yeah. Those are little polycule. We're going to hang out in a week from now for like a paint night, since, you know, the wife, she's a painter, and my husband's girlfriend wants to learn how to paint. And so we're all going to go over to their house and we're going to meet their kid and we're going to have tacos, and it's kind of surreal. It's we're making it work. It feels really good.
Well, you know, we have given each other permission on this show, you and I, to call each other on their shit. So
yeah,
I'm going to call you out.
What shit did I have?
You're ruining that kid's life.
No, I'm not.
You're just selfish.
No.
Yep, you're just selfish just because you want more cock. And you're not thinking of that little boy. He's going to be so confused with daddy's girlfriend.
No, he's not.
So it's not how it's supposed to be.
No,
Marie. It's one man, one woman, and you're fucking it up. Well, and he's going to have to go through therapy because of you. You know, and your selfishness.
You are right about one thing, and that I can call you out on your shit, and you're full of shit. It's just this.
Wait, you're calling me out on my shit for calling you out on your shit?
Absolutely.
Okay, I get it.
Yeah, this is healthy. I like this.
Yeah. Even it's sarcastic shit.
Yeah. Yeah. No, this is like so fucking cool. And I know that people are going to get tired of me talking about poly, but like, it's just so satisfying to make your own rules about life based on fucking just basic ethics and respecting individuals. Well,
I don't think people are going to get tired, because you're kind of our guinea pig. We're kind of watching you to see how this goes. And honestly, I'm not kidding. Now, this is not me being sarcastic, but I am curious as to how you're going to feel about all these relationships 5 years from now, 10 years from now, et cetera, et cetera. I mean,
I'm not worried about that.
All right. You're just in the moment, right?
Oh, yeah. No, I don't. Relationships can come and go at any time. Nothing is guaranteed. Everyone dies. All relationships end. You know, best I can do is to stay mindful and to be considerate and to keep communicating. And some relationships will end and some new ones will start. And I like that my deconversion has led me to a state of accepting the impermanence of all things.
Everything.
Yep. Including marriages, including relationships. Like, including my own life and my consciousness, that is temporary.
Yep.
And so I just try to ground into my body and figure out what the right choices are to make for me and how to respect other people's choices and autonomy too.
Yeah. One of the 32 declarations of healthy adulthood by David Rico is people can come and go in my life and I'm okay.
Yeah. Yeah. You might still hurt.
I know it sounds, sure, but that's adulthood is just, you're not codependent on anybody.
Right.
Ideally.
And you let relationships evolve. Like the relationship I had with my first boyfriend was really intense at the beginning and we were very, very close and things have changed because I've changed.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a very different person than when he met me 2 years ago. And so our relationship dynamic is very different. And actually, this is kind of a funny story because he's super extroverted and talkative and just always cracking jokes. And as an introvert and somebody slightly like more melancholy and more sincere, like wants to talk about more sincere things, like it's exhausting sometimes. And so when I'm chatting with boyfriend number 2 and I'm like letting him know like, oh, this is what my husband's like. This is what boyfriend 1 is like I only say negative things about my first boyfriend to my second boyfriend. And he's like, one day he's like, could you maybe say like one positive thing about your first boyfriend? And like I laughed my ass off because like it's just what we are. We just like he's so annoying and it's just what we are. And I told my first boyfriend about that and he laughed and laughed his ass off and we were all laughing about it last night when everyone met and my first boyfriend's just like, yeah, could you just say one nice thing about me? And I don't know. I guess just my point is that like relationships, I like that I can accept that relationships can shift and become something very different and that you can accept it. If everyone's still on board with what it is, what has become, then you can embrace that and live within that reality.
Right. Yeah. Well, and this is my problem with taking things personal. I know one of the 4 agreements is don't take it personal.
Yeah.
Because when you do, the very act of taking somebody else's act personal is in order to do that, you have to assume some form of meanness on their part or darkness or badness. Like this is a bad thing. They are a bad person, or at least this is a bad act that they're doing. You have to do that if you're going to take it personal.
Yeah.
And so that's why I don't like, at the core, I don't like taking things personal because I know that I've crossed over into assuming that person is evil of some sort.
Yeah.
And I want my heart and mind. I mean, if somebody shows up in my life and they do turn out to be evil, fuck that. They're out of my life, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not passive about that. However, I want to be very sensitive about allowing my heart to go dark towards somebody who doesn't deserve it. So case in point is if a relationship evolves and a person says, Marie, we've had a good run. I'm not getting anything out of this relationship anymore. I'm going to move on. Then you see what I'm saying? In order for you to take that personal, you have to cross over into making him evil.
Yeah.
Or in some form of mean. And he's not. He's just following his heart and you're going to be okay. And it hurts. Go ahead and grieve. That we've talked a lot on this show about grief. Grieve your ass off. Do whatever it takes for you to work that through to a place where you can, get out of bed and get on with your life.
Yeah.
And that's all that's okay. You got full permission to do all the grieving you need to do, except ideally don't attack or blame or project onto that person some degree of meanness. Otherwise, you are going to take that personal. Yeah.
Well, and I think that's where, at least when I think about open relationships, like that's where like it comes into play the idea that once you acknowledge that you're in an open relationship, the idea that your partner is still with you becomes that much more meaningful because there's an intention, there's a choice instead of an expectation or an obligation.
Give me maybe an example or more. Say more.
Right. So like, if I'm married and I'm with my partner, it's kind of expected that we will stay married until we go through a very tumultuous journey of choosing to divorce. And however, now that we are in an open marriage, it's more easy for him to transition out. Like, because we are now actively choosing to stay together. We're not obligated by a contract. We're not obligated by social expectations. We choose now to be together because I think it's more like we don't actually believe in marriage anymore. Like, as a reason to be bound together. It's just like a tax benefit, I guess, and it makes paperwork easier. But I don't actually believe in marriage for myself because I don't know what it means anymore. If I'm not promising to be with you for life, I don't understand why would I get married. I don't know.
Well, I think about, like I say, a third world country where the hospitals there have very few resources compared to an American hospital, and so a person that gets sick in those countries has a much higher chance of dying or getting even sicker than they would if they were in a first world country. I look at your marriage or a situation where there are, so say, we know that affairs and infidelity is extremely common in almost all marriages. I mean, anyway, it's huge numbers. And but in the old caste, the old, form, that's a deal breaker. Whereas if that 7-year itch or that whatever itch or whatever, that the way you've described it to me is that, husband meets certain needs in your life, and then there are some needs that he can't. Well, guess what? He's not Superman. So there's other men in your life that meet a need that he can't or whatever. And so you're a more well-rounded person. Your needs are more well-roundedly met because there's not just one person trying to spin all those plates. And so I'm just saying that your marriage has not only, I get what you're saying about we know that we're here because we're choosing to be here, but I'm saying that your relationships stand a better chance of surviving because you're in a hospital in a first world, because there's more resources available to you guys that you could explore that in the old form would be deal breakers.
Right.
So it's interesting.
And I feel a lot of privilege with that.
Good.
Yeah.
I wanted to finish up just so not anybody feels left out, but on this thread of like stupid things we used to say, listener Charlie said, he used to say this, God is farther above us than we are above insects. We can't expect to understand the way he runs the world, just like an ant cannot understand algebra. Something he actually used to say.
But even if that's true, then how the fuck? He's saying, like, at what point the old hymn is saying, "There's no way we can fathom God," yet at the same time he's running around saying, "This is what God is."
Yeah. I think it's we would use that mindset to, because when we were faced with cognitive dissonance, that we see God is not stopping this rape, or God is not, he's just not showing up in ways that I think a good, loving God would. Yeah. Or whatever. And then we say, I can't understand him any more than an ant can understand algebra. I got to stay faithful to him and just trust that he knows what he's doing, just like an ant would have to trust me with algebra.
Yeah.
All right. And then one last thing, unless you had something to say.
I don't know, slightly related. I was just thinking about a friend of mine actually a couple of people that are going through some hard times. I have a friend whose grandma died, and she was talking about that experience because she was by her bedside when her grandma died, and her grandma had spoken about before, how much she was looking forward to going to heaven and seeing these people that she'd missed in her life. And my friend is, I don't know, agnostic-ish or so. I don't know if she really talks about it or thinks about it a whole lot, but she came out of that situation with some reflections, which I thought were going to be wow, that really made me think about how she's just so fixated on heaven, and it might like push her more towards the agnostic atheist side. But I was surprised that her reflection was like, wow, that was really terrifying to see her face death and to see how comforting it was for her to believe in heaven. It kind of makes me want to rethink things in terms of like that she almost wants to intentionally deceive herself and to choose to believe in a heaven. Yeah. And then at the same time, another anecdote I've been thinking about is another friend who just recently faced this very, very serious health problem. And then she's been more or less stabilized recently and posting a lot on Facebook about her experiences. And something she posted recently was about how in the past, before this, she had typically looked at the challenges in her life with the view of like, how is this here to teach me? What's the purpose here? What's the good here?
No temptation has seized you except that which is common to man, and God has given you the strength to bear up under it.
Right, that there's a purpose to this or whatever. Yep. And she was just reflecting how like, I don't know that I believe that there's a purpose for this, that maybe this just happened. And I just like got all warm inside. I was like, yes, this did just happen. Nobody did this to you. There is no purpose to it. You might find some goodness out of it or some kind of way that it changes your life in the future, but that's because of you. It's because of what you choose to do to it. And so I found that really inspiring to read, because that's something I've been working through a lot, especially as my cat was dying. Like the best cat in the world died at 7 years old from fucking cancer. There is no God. If there was a God, that would not happen to a cat. Moreover, any of the small innocent babies that die around the world every day. No, there is no God. And the sooner that we can accept that there is no justice in the nature of the world, the sooner maybe we'll actually fucking react, right? Like in an honest way to what's going on. And then that will be probably a lot more effective. Like I feel like I'm dealing really, really well with the grief around my cat, because I never deceived myself for one goddamn moment about what the fuck was happening, and the fact that I was killing her intentionally, and that the fact that she was dying, like
euthanized her.
Yep. We paid a lot of money to kill my cat. That's what I say. And I just feel like I've been through a lot of pain in the last 2 months dealing with that, but I feel more stable. Yeah. Because I feel like I see it. I looked it in the eyes and I said, okay, like I accept that you're here. This is what's happening. Like I told you, Keith and I just kept telling each other, just say yes to what is. Let's just deal with the reality in front of us and stop fighting it all the time. And that really, really helped.
Well, and this is another example of what Jenn was saying, that her pet peeve was willful ignorance. And it's another example that it is in fact a thing. And that your friend is, I know there's a lot of people. I mean, we talked about this before, and a lot. You see it a lot in this along the conversation of deconversion, and that is we don't get to choose our beliefs. People are wanting us to repent and come back, as if we can just believe in Santa again after realizing that he doesn't exist. So this choosing to believe in heaven just because it will comfort you in your moment of, or just even in your contemplation of death. And I think that happens. I think it happens a lot. I think it's probably more common than not. And this is the point of Ernest Becker's book, is that we create immortality projects and narratives so that we don't have to, imagine ourselves fading to black. And, so I wanted to go back, and this whole North-South thing, this Confederate flag and the tension that you are curious about, and how much of it still lingers in the 21st century. And I really, really want to highly recommend the movie The Green Book. So this is Viggo Mortensen as the driver, a white Italian kind of racist, not kind of racist, he's a racist guy. And he gets hired by a professional musician who's going to be touring the country, and especially the South in this case. And there is a thing, I did not know this was a thing, but the Green Book is a book published by a man whose last name was Green. He's a black man. He was a mail carrier. And he had done this work because of the embarrassment of being a black person traveling in unknown regions, stopping off at a hotel that won't let you stay there and having to get back in your car and find a black friendly hotel or find a restaurant. What I saw in these two people was like the yin and yang that's inside me. Like I have both of those voices inside me. Yeah. And so I appreciated the tension and the play, how this played out, how they become friends. And I mean, I laughed like it was a comedy and I cried like it was a drama. I was a little, every now and then I go to movies where when the credits roll, I have to just sit there. I can't move. I have to like really regurgitate or contemplate on what is happening in my body and mind right now because of what I've just seen. Yeah. And I'm pouring, I'm just pouring down tears. I can't really grab my breath. I'm stunned. And there's been a few of those in my life, and this was one of them. So I highly recommend the Green Book.
Green Book. Okay.
Yeah, especially if you're curious in North and South, and what's this takes place in 1962. And so it's kind of like, the status of race relations in the South at that time. I think it's pretty accurate. Yeah. I read some pushback on it. Some of the family, said, but I think all these movies that are based on truth, they take a little creative liberty.
Yeah.
To make it, something. And I don't blame anybody for that. It's right. It's all good.
I thought it was really surprising when Jenn was like, you know what I was surprised about? The fact that Obama got elected.
Well, I can see in her world where that would just be like a no way. That will never happen. Okay, right. So look at my world. I'm looking at Trump and saying no way, that will never happen, because my world is full of smart people. My world is full of evolved people, emotionally intelligent people. I literally said no fucking way. He will never. Mm-hmm. I mean, and when he got the nomination, I was a little stunned, but I thought, nah, he's still not going to get the presidency. This will never happen. On the very night of the election, the air, the oxygen was sucked out of the room as we watched the evening unfold, and we all left and walked to our cars in silent numbness. Yeah. Just, it was unlike anything I've ever experienced as far as how bad a party could, go. Yeah. We left there just dumbstruck. So I can see where in her world, Obama's election would be, now she happened to celebrate it, but I guarantee you her parents and her environment didn't. Yeah. Whose middle name is Hussein? No way. Right?
Yeah, no, that's fair. Yeah. That's a big deal.
That's my concern with, like, if Alexandria Cortez, Ocasio-Cortez. Yeah. I mean, here we are. He's created so much racial hatred towards Hispanics. That her odds of being nominated, electable, having the last name Cortez is down. I mean, that would be a something that she would have to overcome with this dumbass country that we live in now. Anyway.
Well, I think what I keep on hearing is that it's always been dumbass, and that we just didn't realize. Yeah,
they were kind of hidden, or at least to us, they were hidden. Not to Jenn.
Right.
She lived it.
Yeah, and I think people of color or other marginalized groups, I don't think they were surprised. Like, it's all these other groups that are constantly persecuted than us who are cisgender or white or middle class. Maybe we just we don't see it. We're not exposed to it. Whereas these other groups, exactly. I'm speaking broadly, but they're not super surprised because people are shitty sometimes.
No, our blissful ignorance is only afforded to us by our privilege.
Correct. Yeah. We have to make ourselves uncomfortable to hear that. Yeah.
Hey, Marit. Good talking to you. I've been saving that.
You too, Cassette.
No, seriously, it's good to talk to you. All right. I miss our talks. So
yeah,
talk to you soon.
Yeah, it's good to connect, dude. I hope that you have a safe flight to Oklahoma.
Yeah, thanks. I'm gonna sit by her side. I have to wear a mask and gloves because she's got this flu.
Yeah.
And it's my wife is basically my good conscience. I was not thinking along these lines, and she said, "You need to go see her."
Yeah.
And we just booked a flight, and I'm going to just sit by her side. And
good.
It might be this flu might be the thing that takes her out, or it might not. But either way, I think it's the right thing to do.
It's good that you're going. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm grateful to Mindy for having the kind of
encouraging
conscience
you.
that knows what to do.
Yeah.
I'm like socially and culturally inept.
That's correct. You are. Yes.
I don't know what to do a lot of times, and that's again kind of a blissful ignorance on my part. But thankfully, I'm surrounded by people like you and her.
Yep.
to help me be relevant.
Hey, Cass, be a human for a second, could you?
Yeah. So and I appreciate that so much, because if I were around people that just made me out to be a monster by those same traits. But here you are laughing about it, like your boyfriend number one. You guys were able to laugh about the fact that, in many ways, he's really annoying to you. And
yeah,
I'm telling you, man, I'm really craving an environment and a culture and a tribe of yes sayers that see the shit, see the scum, see the downside, see the shadow side of somebody, and saying, yeah, but that's my friend, lover, and I've got their back.
Yeah.
Just as they are. I mean, the thing we wanted from Jesus, to be loved just as we are.
Oh my God, yeah.
We're still after that, and we can get it with mature people, emotionally evolved people.
Yes, and that's what I'm super grateful for, because my new boyfriend and his wife are incredibly impressive, self-aware people. So,
to sit across the coffee shop from you and say I love you, and I'm gonna introduce you to our 2-year-old.
I know. Oh my
God. You are on another planet, and it's a better planet than fucking MAGA country.
It's pretty great. Yeah.
Awesome. Have a good weekend, or what's left of it.
Yep. Stay safe.
See ya.
Bye.
Yeah, who's right? Am I right? Is she right? Are we both right?
How's about we split the difference, all right? Here's what I think, dude. I think that you're right, and that it should be a private thing, because the last thing you want to do is walk around with your cheeks all gone saying, it's because I'm fat.